Hello, this is our politics induction session. I thought I'd explore with you today this key phrase from Laswell. He wrote it in 1936 and he said, politics is about who gets what, when, and how. It's about power. And what we'd explore is where does power lie in our system? So allow that to happen. Two key objectives. What we're going to find out first of all is how does our political system work? Give you a bit of a basic overview, and then see about how policy decisions are made. Who decides who gets what, when do they get it, and how do they get it? Okay, so let's start here. This is an overview of our political system. I'm going to take you through it point by point so you get an understanding of how all these arrows fit together. Here we, citizens. What do we do in our political system? Well, we vote either in referendums, such as the Brexit example a few years back, or we vote every 5 years for our MP, who goes to the House of Commons in Parliament. That is part of our representative democracy. Parliament in the UK is pretty special because it has two houses. It has the House of Commons with 650 MPs, but it also has the House of Lords who are unelected. That's part of our legacy. And only other couple of countries in the whole world have an unelected second chamber. But Parliament's really important. It's called the legislature because it makes laws. It also passes the budget. In other words, it says how much money the government is allowed to spend and how much you tax people. Thirdly, one of its key roles is to scrutinise the government. In other words, it makes sure the government does what they said they're going to be doing and it isn't wasting our money. So Parliament has a key role to play in representing us as citizens. The government, also called the executive, is led by the Prime Minister, who's the leader of the majority party in the House of Commons. At the minute, that's Boris Johnson. He also has a cabinet of ministers who run different departments. So, for example, Matt Hancock runs the Department of Health. He's responsible for making sure that health policy is followed and implemented effectively. That's what the government does. It implements, it executes the policy that the Parliament has agreed upon. That can give it incredible power. As you can see here, it spends money on services, it implements laws, and they impact upon the citizens. We also have the Supreme Court up here. The role of the Supreme Court is there to make sure the government doesn't act illegally. In fact, beyond the powers given to it by Parliament. Parliament says through law what the government's allowed to do. If the government does more than that, it's acting illegally, and the Supreme Court can bring it up on that. We also have devolved government, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, London, and these governments have their own powers that have been given to them by Parliament so they can run things like education and health in their own way, in their own areas. They spend money on those services which impact upon the citizens. So you can see power is a bit complex, but the basic principle of our constitution is that Parliament has the power. It is called sovereignty, parliamentary sovereignty. This is because it defines how much power government can have in what it does. Hope you understand that. Let's see it in practice. Okay, here's the question. Who influences decisions made by the Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, when he makes policy over COVID-19? We want to know who decides who gets what, when, and how. If we start here, it's no surprise to think that the Prime Minister has some influence over Matt Hancock. He's the one who sets the broader government strategy. So perhaps he's quite influential in saying what the next steps in terms of the Health Secretary's decision is going to be. Added to that, we have people like Dominic Cummings, political advisors to the Prime Minister, who'll be shaping the thinking about what the message should be on a day-to-day basis to the citizens in the media. And then, of course, we have the scientific advisors who will be shaping Hancock's thinking about what should be the next stages, what should be implemented next based on the science. This has been heavily used by the government as a means of showing how they themselves are doing, making their thinking about who gets what when. Added to that, we have civil servants. Now, civil servants are the permanent advisors within the Department of Health. And what they'll do is they'll tell the minister exactly what can be done from their experience in terms of implementation and help to coordinate that across the country. Added to that, we have pressure groups, for example, the Royal College of Nursing, who will actually, again, give influence in terms of what's practical, what can be done, what their members are wanting at any particular time. And there should be discussions going on between pressure groups and civil servants about what can be done at particular moments and how effective that is happening. Then we have a whole range of other people who are influencing the decision. For example, Hancock's got to think about his own party MPs. There's been some talk about the fact that senior party MPs in the Conservative Party have been pressurising the government about getting the economy going again. And that will obviously influence health decisions in terms of the lockdown. We have the opposition, the Labour Party at this present time, led by Keir Starmer, who'll be asking questions from Hancock and expecting answers about what the decisions are going to be made and a plan about how the lockdown is going to be eased. Then you have dissolved government. Well, that changes the game. For example, in Scotland, they have greater powers over what they choose to do in terms of the lockdown strategy. And that can influence how Hancock is getting his messages across and what he decides to do. Because he's trying to give an impression for England and Wales, where the Scottish might have a completely different strategy. Then we have the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court role, as I've said before, is to ensure that Hancock is not acting illegally beyond the powers that have been given to him by Parliament. So, if some are concerned about individual liberties being restricted, they could take the case to the Supreme Court, who then rule whether or not the government is acting beyond their powers, or an ultra vires as it's known. The EU, an external factor. You may not think that they would be influential, but of course they would have an overview of European strategy towards COVID-19. They also, as we know, had some sort of strategy at the beginning of the year in terms of the support to facilitate equipment, which we didn't get involved in. So the EU could be still influential here. And finally, we have the media. The media's influence, for example, finding out what the next stages are going to be, the fact that we had daily meetings for ministers, including Hancock, suggests that the media do have some influence of the policy-making process. There will be pressure there for the lockdown to be eased. There'll be speculation that the government has to answer to at all times. So as you can see here, there's a whole range of different things that the Minister of Health will have to consider in his policy making and the pronouncements that he makes in terms of the next steps. So, what's the task? Well, I want you to consider this statement. Making a policy in government is complex. As you can see from the slide previously, there's those who want to influence by political guidance. There are those who want to influence by using the advice from science, for example, and then there are further external factors, all of which are pressurizing the minister in the decisions they have to make. What I'd like you to do is write a short paragraph on each of those and use the examples from previous to show how political advice and scientific advice and external factors can all influence the minister. And finally, as a piece of analysis, what do you think is the most significant influence and why? About 100 words on that, just to summarize your thinking about where you are at this moment in time. Good luck and enjoy.